I wasn't recording, was I? I'm
Yeah.
recording now. Oh, really? Because it was still asking me where I wanted the recording to go.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't looked down. So there I go. Okay. So anyway, I just want to say a couple of things about why I'm doing this. And really, it just kind of is an outgrowth of a lot of what I'm doing right now. The two things I think that are leading to this is one, that I started writing a book a year ago in January of last year that hasn't really become a book yet. And then I had this kind of take on Marie Kondo's what sparks joy, and how if you declutter and only keep the things that light you up or make you happy, you'll have more joy in your life. And since my understanding of how life works got turned completely inside out a few years ago, I got in a really deep way that it's way more than that. It's inside out of that joy is not dependent on a thing. I love my iPhone and I would not get rid of it today, but when it doesn't work, it doesn't spark joy. And so it's not the thing that sparks joy. And that led me to playing with this simplify your life idea. The other thing that happened is I got to walk through almost 8 weeks of really intense body pain in February, March. And in that time, I started having moments of experiencing that my ability to be okay, grounded, joy, whatever, to be okay isn't really dependent on the sensations and processes going on in my body.
Wow.
Or in my life, or in my bank account, or in my relationships. And that has really brought me to a place that I occupy sometimes. It doesn't have a lot of words. It's really deep, profound, and very simple. And so those two things together, and now here I am with these opportunities to share, to be in the space and look at how our crazy, busy, demanding lives don't mean we have to feel crazy, stressed, and driven, and all the other ways we can look at it. So I'm gonna bring Molly on and say that Molly Gordon's been in my life for I don't know how many years, and I'm really glad for it, as a coach and a teacher and a friend. And I don't know how to say this really briefly, but I have been in so many conversations with Molly where I have poured out in exquisite detail how very complicated and difficult this challenge is in my life, and have gotten very many flavors of "oh well" from Molly. And the other day I was thinking, okay, where does this land on my "oh well-o-meter"? And I visualized immediately an "oh well-o-meter" with a red, yellow, and green zone and my needle. So anyway, Molly, thank you. I'm going to share the "oh well-o-meter" with you, and I'll make a graphic sometime and I'll send it.
Do, because I am heretofore the "oh well" coach. Also known as the "so what" coach. Oh, and it's funny because I was actually working with a client earlier this week, and we were looking at, she was taking a look for the first time really at the amount of discretion we have over how much significance we give to the things we experience, like whether or not something's a big deal or not a big deal. And at some point I shared the observation with her that a number of years ago, when this is probably like 25 years ago, when teenage girls started saying whatever and "oh well," both of those responses kind of jangled with me for a while. And then one year I had this massive insight into the difference between whatever, which to me is like a I don't care, life's a bitch and then you die kind of mood. And oh well, which is I may not like it, let's carry on.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the oh well and the yeah.
And I've developed a real appreciation. I don't know if it's fondness, but I have a lot of appreciation for oh well as a pretty darn good way to relate to a whole bunch of things that we may or may not like.
Well, I didn't receive many of those oh wells very well. I was really pissed off at a lot of them, and it was a slow unfolding, really, as life is, a slow unfolding. And the other day I was, I don't know, crossing the street, and this thought came to me of, okay, well, what if I do end up homeless? I'll probably deal with that too. Oh well. And I heard the oh well as I was walking, and that's when the whole vision came to me. But I didn't have those eyes, and I don't have them all the time, for real. I don't. I want to just pause and say, I'm sorry, I didn't orient the call. This is a few more minutes of Molly and I chatting. Raise your hand if you have something you want to say, and we will open it up really soon. Thanks.
So your initial invitation to me, Sue, was something like, I'm going to be, Sue, I'm doing a series of Zoominars on the theme called Simplici-Tea, on the theme kind of inspired by simplifying, inspired by Marie Kondo, but looking deeper. How would you like to talk about simplifying thought, even if that's not a thing we actually do? And that's how I remember the setup for this. Is that where we are?
Yes, except I said simplify your thinking because I don't think I can simplify thought. I think thought is really simple. So it's really the way I get it. It's the way I get in my own way, the way one gets in one's own way, the way we think ourselves into collapse or whatever, just not presence, but all the ways we keep ourselves from the present.
Yeah.
Or that, did you ever hear the one, Molly and I have some common 12-step history. I hope that's all right with you for me to say. And so this is, I have many sayings that from my many years in AA meetings, and this one, when you have one foot in the past and one foot in the future, you're pissing all over today. So yes, and basta, enough of that. How simple can I make it to be in the present? That's the kernel of it for me. How simple can it be? And those moments when it hits me on the head like that, of being, of seeing that sensation and process is not the boss of me, I don't know. I don't make them happen.
Yeah,
it's just kind of an opening to that. And I don't know how, so I don't know. I'm here to explore it.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to reiterate what you said a moment ago, which is please, people, feel free to ask questions, or if somebody wants to play with a little coaching on something where it looks like you really use a simpler handle on what's going on, I'm up for that. Because more and more, at least at this point in my own journey, I'm really skeptical of sweeping generalizations, because as soon as I get a sentence out my mouth, it doesn't necessarily look true anymore. So there are a few things that seem pretty generally true or useful to me. And then there's a whole lot of things that I think we do better when we take a closer, more intimate look at it. So what occurred to me as I was listening to you, Sue, is that, yeah, I would agree, can't simplify thought. Thought's pretty simple. In its essence, thought's just thought. It's like you can't simplify a rock. A rock is simple, and thought is as simple as a rock. But when thought becomes a verb and becomes thinking, and it looks like something we do, that can start to feel complicated. And rather than trying to simplify the contents of our thinking, what occurred to me is it might be useful to contemplate having a simpler relationship with thinking and with how crazy thinking can make any human being.
I think that's really a part of the core of it for me. It's kind of like my stance. There's my thinking, which I stood so close to I thought it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And now there's my thinking, and then, but it doesn't have to be all of me. It doesn't have to encompass or.
Yeah, thinking can seem definitive of our experience in a moment, but once we see that it's never definitive of who we are or what is possible, it's like it's controlling my experience in this moment, but it's not controlling my experience tomorrow. It's not actually controlling the next thought I might have. You know, anything is possible. But like when we're so close to it that it looks like thinking is us, and then the task becomes, how do I simplify? How do I organize? How do I clean up my messed up mind? Like, not only do I not know, it's like, if we knew, that would be a gargantuan task. I think,
it's funny, I'm planning something that's like almost 8 weeks long. So I've had a lot of time to think about this series and to write about it and to post about it and to talk about it. And I catch my thinking oscillating, and sometimes I can easily talk about it, and sometimes somebody I don't know very well will say something like, "Oh, so you're going to teach me how to change my thinking, or you're going to teach me how to think positive more often." And I don't know how to, I don't know how to really respond, even in moments when I'm feeling really like I know what the creative urge is here, but I often don't have words for it.
Right. I often don't either, and I think it maybe is, since that's come up a couple of times already today, it's worth mentioning to people that the insight or shift that you have today or any time that's helpful to you is not necessarily going to be something you can capture in words or repeat or control or manage or package. And I think it's just, there's in the age of memes where everything can be boiled down to an image and a few words, it's helpful to recognize that no, some things can't be boiled down at all. You grok it or you don't. And I just am saying this as a gigantic permission slip to grok what you grok and give yourself credit for grokking it, even if you haven't the faintest freaking idea what it was that you grokked.
Okay. So I think that's what I see a lot in our transform your life, transformation game, and people looking to coaches and trainings, and a lot of that and people just say it, they use the words, is to learn how to get their thinking to be better for them, to learn how to meditate more so that my brain, so that I can empty my mind. And it's just a really pervasive idea. And then when you look at it from the inside out, I think what yes, it's not a technique, and yes, there's also kind of, and it feels like an invitation for me. When I first started playing in this playground, of letting go of the idea that I have to make my life work so hard, and that I have to schedule myself so hard and be as rigid as I was with myself, which was for me a lot about feeling safe. It took a while to feel comfortable that I would eat when I needed to eat and rest when I needed to rest and exercise when I didn't have to do it every day in order to still have connection to it. I wasn't giving up on myself when I let go of the rigidity. And I think some time spent in that opening creates more time to I don't know, get a little more playful, get a little less attached or weighty. I don't know if I'm making any sense now. I thought I was, but I lost myself.
I got kind of lost toward the end, but that could be just because my mind wandered off. But there was something in the first half of what you said, which I now can no longer remember.
Well, I think that maybe we should just see if anyone else wants to join in and help us steer this boat.
Question.
Siri just joined the conversation. That's weird.
Thank you, Siri. Siri's not sure she understands. Sandy, did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, Sue and I have talked before, and
Hi, Sandy.
Hi. And I have to tell you, Molly, I am in love with you immediately. It's official because you have used the word grok in common conversation. So that means you are already a star in my book, and I am very glad to meet you.
This is the day and possibly a month or year where I need a low bar for stardom. So I'm very glad to have cleared it.
But Sue said something that really clicked for me, that it's not a technique, and I really get that. But what I find is mostly when I don't take it so seriously, that's huge for me. I think Sue and I kind of agree on this one, that laughter is a very important component of the sanity that we live.
Yeah.
And for me anyway, when I can hold all of the crap that I see in my life and all of the ideas and the opinions that I have about certain things and how they should be, when I hold them a little bit lighter and I don't take them very seriously, I'm able to get to a quiet place that kind of begins with the mantra, oh, well.
Mm-hmm.
And there is when I can get to a place where I can pause and get quiet, I find, in as much as there are a technique to these things, that is a form of attention I think that we can train in ourselves.
Mm.
I don't think we have to rely immediately on any kind of negative feedback, but it's that moment we remember what it is that we're up to, and we can say, deep breath, let's begin again. It's okay, just begin again. And that's been very helpful to me. But Sue, I heard you talking about your stuff with a lot less seriousness now, and it has a lighter flavor to it. And it's very attractive. It's a gotcha, it's like, I want what she's got because she's looking a lot better now,
Hey, Sandy, can I reflect something back to you? Is that okay?
Sure.
So, yeah, there's sometimes I can do that. Sometimes I can just sit down and settle down, but that's a technique. And I'm telling you, sometimes I just can't play. I can't pick up the tool, that part of the tool bag. Yeah. All I can do is sit here and celebrate the moment when I recognize that I am pouring napalm on this hurt feeling that I'm having because somebody made a comment on Instagram that wasn't an adulatory comment. And I am sitting here clicking and clicking to get refreshing the page to look for the next compliment. It is time for me to walk away from the device and go do something fucking else until I get over myself. And that is not a technique either. That's just a gift because I don't get that message sometimes. And sometimes I sit in that stew for way too long.
And I think there's a way in which tools and techniques and strategies and models are not bad. They're really cool.
Yeah.
But for each of us, the appropriate tool, technique, model, or strategy arises in the appropriate one, always arises in the moment. So if I start feeling upset and I reach into my toolbox for the wrench that worked yesterday, that may or may not help me out today. It's in that sense that we don't look at tools, techniques, and strategies, because we want to look to the moment. What do I need right now? What arises right now? And when you do that and look down, you notice there's a wrench in your hand, by all means use the freaking wrench, because that's what arose right now. So sometimes it's take a walk, sometimes it's do yoga, sometimes it's watch Netflix, sometimes it's make tea, sometimes it's just suck it up and suffer until you get over it. So the tools are not good or bad. It's reliance on tools and an expectation that past experience should guide future tool use that I think is erroneous.
Past experience should guide future tool use. That's good. Yes, right. Exactly.
A good idea. Past experience may over time give us more skill with tools, because that's about learning, and we're all learning beings. But the selection of the tool needs to be of the moment. And I think that's more what Sid meant. I mean, I can't imagine Sid Banks or any other fully realized teacher saying, don't meditate as a generalization, but I can easily see them looking at a student who's making themselves crazy by meditating, which for them boils down to having a great knockdown, drag out fight with their minds every morning. And it's like, doesn't look like that's helping you. You might want to stop that.
Yeah, and I'm not a religious person, and I've been experiencing all the stage fright. I did a live event this Monday, and my heart pumped for the entire time. And now my heart was like, I've been feeling nervous and this energy. And so I sat down before anyone got on the call, and I started praying. And why not? It just was a way to kind of center myself and and just get connected. And why not? I'm glad I have a giant tool bag, and that a prayer came to mind, and doesn't mean that it would work for me the next time someone cuts me off in traffic necessarily, but I'm at that time I might think of something else.
Yeah.
Like hopefully flipping the bird below the visible line, below the windshield, so that nobody will see it.
You don't get into a road rage incident.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to pop out to say hi to Judy, since I'm seeing her.
Hi, Judy.
And to see familiar people. So, Sue, as we think about simplifying our thinking or simplifying our relationship about thinking, it just occurs to me to ask, are there any kind of, what insights have you had over the last couple of years that have simplified for you the dilemma of being a human being with a mind that runs, spins, creates dramas, and does its thing?
Oh, there have been a couple of big ones, and they, as usual for me, came out of other people's mouths and just like landed with a resonant splash in a moment of receptivity. And one was hearing somebody coach another person and say, you don't have to revert to type, in response to this guy saying, well, I'll probably, like I typically do, blah, blah, blah. And the response was, you don't have to revert to type. And I didn't hear anything else of the rest of the conversation because the fireworks were going off in my head. Because I just felt like a lot of weight fall right off my shoulders in that moment without even having to think about it. The other one, I think you were in the conversation with Dave Kibbe, where he was talking about, he always assumes people want to help him. And again, I didn't hear anything for the next 5 minutes because I'm like, what? I have never assumed people want to help me. So those have been two big things that are present when I do revert to type and help me kind of get unstuck a little quicker these days.
Yeah.
What about you?
Right now I'm in a kind of transitional or liminal time where everything, I don't know anything anymore. I mean, it's when I try to think of in terms of generalizations, I just come up blank. Faced with a specific thing in a specific moment, I'm willing to go with whatever comes up, and something always comes up, and that looks good enough for me. And actually, maybe that's a major insight I've had lately, is I don't need a globally accurate and true operating theory of how life works, or how Molly can be a good person and an effective coach, blah, 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 in order to show up moment to moment and do my best. And I think until very recently, I don't know if I've thought I've needed it, or if I've just been preoccupied with finding it because I wanted it. I wanted a kind of an overarching rationale for how I live and how I operate and what's true. And I'm not so confident that that's even a useful thing for me to be after anymore.
But you were looking, you were going after it, and then you decided that you don't need to?
I think I've always kind of gone after it because I've always tried to explain things and to unify. I've been looking for the unified theory of life forever. It's not so much that I've decided anything, it's just I've run out of road with looking for a unified theory for now.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to get too jargony or technical, but really there's been a deep thing for me that I don't really know how to understand, but I feel like in a way I have been brought back to the very beginning of my spiritual journey, oh so many decades ago. And I'm talking be here now era. I am talking LSD, and there is nothing. We are all one. There is nothing, and I am, and in moments I am brought back to that these days.
Yes, me too, very much so.
And there are people who argue about whatever non-duality, whatever, but it doesn't matter to me. I don't really need to name it. I think there's a lot of juicy stuff available for my energy and my ability to show up. You guys, I will confess, and I don't know everybody on the call, but I will confess to you that it made me really gulp that I've created these 8 weeks of commitments to show up like this in my uncertain body, in my uncertain health. Like, what? And that I have trusted this energy to take me to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Seems pretty crazy to me. And here I am, and anything can happen. I think it would, I'm glad I didn't not do it because of uncertainty.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of, I think that those moments of absolute, of putting out what I'm being driven to put out in the world as legacy, as my way of whatever, expressing my atoms and my blood and my pulse and my passion in the world. I may as well do it while I'm here.
Well, yeah. And that sounds like a story of simpler thinking to me. Whereas what I hear in that, or make of that, Sue, is that rather than wrestling with your doubts and fears and stories and blah, blah, you just kind of skimmed over the top. It's like, go play amongst yourselves. I'm designing this series. And it's not that while those thoughts were playing among themselves that it didn't have any impact on you. I'm sure you felt stuff. But again, I'm thinking it was like a mom with 3 toddlers and she's on the phone, and the TV's on, and the dog is barking. And I'm thinking of a specific time when my sister was in this situation. One of my sisters And she was so gracious, and she was also carrying on a conversation with me. She was so present and so gracious, and she's got kids tugging on her and a phone call and a dog barking and the TV on and the blah, blah, and the blah, blah. But she just kind of skimmed over the surface all of that and stayed on track with what she wanted to create. It's like, why struggle to turn negative thoughts into positive thoughts if it could be done? And I don't think it can be. But even if it could be done, it looks really inefficient when you could just ignore the negative thoughts or just not take them seriously, which does not mean, I think when we talk about ignoring thinking, it's really important to realize ignoring it doesn't mean that it no longer looks like it's happening to you. We had yard work done today, and so there was machinery noise. And once I checked in with my client to see if the noise was audible and distracting to her, and it wasn't, I chose to ignore it. And I forgot about it. It just struck me now how I never thought about it again, and it was really loud. But if I had made the choice to ignore it and then kept checking in with the noise to see if ignoring it was working, it would have just...
That's exactly right. It's like my mother used to say, when one of us three kids would pipe up, it's like, oh, another country heard from. So I'm sitting in front of the computer and I'm not getting what I want from the feedback I'm getting. Country is being heard from, and it's like, okay, well, what can I do now to maybe turn my attention away from letting that be as loud as it is right now? Yeah. And that's a technique. And then I'll just go feed myself or make some kombucha or sit down at the table and pick up my paintbrush, and eventually my attention will shift if I just let it.
Yeah.
It's simple, right?
that by nature, attention shifts and thought moves by nature. So if we can kind of bank on that, place our bets based on that, rather than on trying to manage the speed of the transition or the change, then overall we're better off.
So this whole Simplify Your Life thing is changing my book. And I don't know if you see it on social media, but I'm developing these Simplify Your Life ideas as visuals and now writing an essay to accompany each one. And the book will be, at this moment, 54 of those essays and visuals that go with them about the different areas of Simplify Your Life. So, and last night or yesterday when I created one, I actually wrote on this is a Simplify Your Life game changer, which sounds very much like a technique, but it's not the way it's meant. I don't know how it will be received, but it's what came to me, and I'm playing with the content and the form and the creation of it, and then sharing what comes to me and through me in these conversations. And who knows what else will come from this? Apparently.
In Marie Kondo's model, in a home, you take every item and you touch it, you hold it, you ask if it sparks joy, and then you make a decision. And I think the difference when it comes to the realm of thought is that it's tremendously liberating to realize you don't have to pick it up. You don't have to pick it up to find out if it sparks joy. You kind of know that. And if it's not sparking joy, don't pick it up. Picking it up isn't going to spark any more joy. And with thought, unlike a blouse or a jacket, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to make any decision for it to get disposed of or put away. You don't have to fold it. You don't have to take it to Goodwill. You don't have to put it out for recycling.
It just really helps.
Pick it up.
It just really helps if you don't wrap your arms around it and tie it down and pour weight on it and napalm in that match.
It really helps if you don't do that. And positive thinking would be like picking up your thoughts and putting them all on the ironing board and then doing the endless task of ironing them so that they would look nicer.
I see heads nodding. Does anybody want to jump in? who's Susie? I don't see Susie, and I don't know what Susie that is. We have a mystery Susie.
We have a mystery Susie.
And a mystery Aylin.
I was just going to say, I heard something recently that picking up the thought is like putting another log on the fire that you're actually trying to put out.
Yeah.
And that actually resonated for me. It was like, yeah. And I'm pretty good at doing it still from time to time.
Absolutely.
The other thing I was just, when you were talking about insights, the tiny insight that was massive for me last year was when I've never been very good at doing the housework. I often would have a sink full of dishes, and I suddenly realized that the only thing getting in my way was want to do it. And when I just didn't care if I wanted to do it or not, I just found that I did it. And the ironic thing is, I'd sometimes look at it and think, I'll do that in the morning. And then I'd think I'd decided that, but then suddenly I'd find that I'd actually done it. It didn't take me long at all. And it was such a tiny insight, but it's just had such a massive impact.
Yeah.
And that was, So I thought I'd share that one.
I think that's actually a gigantic insight, because how many of us walk around in the story, the belief that whether or not we want to do something is a key indicator of whether or not we should do it. And also a key indicator as to how well our life is going. And it's like, if you don't have to care about whether or not you want to do it, that changes the whole decision architecture massively. That's a very big piece of simplification.
I could let go of a whole lot of stuff because, after decades of suffering from depression, the reason I had a problem with it was because I was just so tired of having to drive myself to do everything, because everything was such hard work, and that was why I wanted to do it, because I saw that sometimes I did want to do it, and it was easy and effortless when I wanted to do it, and I'd make massive progress, and of course I wanted more of that, but it was the wanting it that was getting in the way of having it. And when I didn't care if I didn't care anymore, it's opened up a whole new world, and that I actually feel really good after I've done something now, and I can sort of feel that, whereas I used to always feel like no matter what I did, it was never enough. Mm-hmm. And now it's kind of like, well, even that, it's almost celebrating the small things, celebrating that the sink's clear.
Yeah, I think that's a natural byproduct of that, is we do end up celebrating more small things.
Yeah. So, it has actually made a huge difference. So,
Judy, I don't know if we were on any conversations together when I was going through this last year, but when my knee got really, really bad last summer, fall, I love to walk every day, but I was struggling with that because I didn't know how long I'd be able to walk, and how far I'd be able to get, and then be able to get back. And so I started walking like I'm the petals on a flower. If my house is on this block, I walk a little bit and I make a circle, and then I walk a little bit. I make so I've explored my neighborhood over and over and over and over again, and in small spurts, and it has improved my eye as an artist, my eye for detail, and my appreciation for the beauty of sights I see every day. It has really simplified my life, and lucky for me, most days that feels really, really good. I don't feel deprived. And I get a lot out of my walks, and I don't really have to, even if I don't travel somewhere or make a big hike out of it, I can loop around and get get as much out of it. I'm not even going to say it's not a full experience. It is. It's 100% a juicy full experience.
Yeah. As soon as 30 or 20 or 60% of your attention isn't on the experience you wish you were having, suddenly you're having 100% rich experience.
Right. And as long as if we capture the percent that is focused on the experience you're not having, or the life you're not having, or the
that
house
way after the fact is so obvious, but of course in the moment that we're preoccupied with something that isn't present, I mean, it's an easy mistake to make. I make it all the time, but it's
I don't go to 12-step meetings so much anymore, so I don't confess on myself as much anymore, but I cannot tell you how many times I have sat in a room and watched a woman walk in, and my first thought was, I would have such a happier life if I had her ass.
Oh.
I swear.
Wow.
I swear. I'm too old for that one anymore. Or maybe it's just my ego has just luckily given up its attachment. But man, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of bandwidth to that stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Sue. I suspect that it wasn't really spiritual growth. It's just that age finally got the better at me, and I took myself off the meat market, and I've been so much happier ever since. But,
oh, Molly, I hadn't even considered wearing makeup today until you said that you'd take a few minutes for it. And so I I sat down in front of the computer, and I ran back to the bathroom and took half the color out of my eyebrows because I'm used to having gray eyebrows now, and it looked really weird. So,
funny.
Yeah, but yeah, it's the blessing of age if you let it be, or if I let it be. It's kind of a relief.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask Lorianne what was on her mind, and then she ducked off the camera. I guess she's not even listening. Anybody else want to chime in? We can just ramble on some more.
You know, something just occurred to me about what has simplified things for me. And I think one of the insights, yeah, I guess it's an insight, that I've had that has had huge implications is realizing that we are designed, human beings are learners. You know, like learning is in our DNA. And in fact, it looks like all of life is an adaptive, learning, unfolding, progress-making process. And my model for learning, I grew up in a Catholic family, devout Catholic family. I went to Catholic schools, and I was a good student. I was an A student. So I had a pretty narrow sense of what learning meant. It came with a very kind of hierarchical, grade-oriented, success, failure, accomplishment, achievement vibe. But at this point in my life, it's like learning, if you take grading, if you take testing, if you take taking the feedback from the learning process personally out of it, learning takes care of itself. Like babies learning to walk do just fine. They figure it out. And they fail like crazy, and they have frustration, and they have successes, and they run little experiments, and they even get injured. They fall, they bonk their heads on the floor or on the corner of the coffee table. But it would never occur to me, at least, to bring in a group of people with spreadsheets and flip charts and models for optimizing the learning to walk experience. But I think that I at least did that to myself for my whole life. So first, self-improvement looked like a thing. It looked like a noble thing. It looked like an essential thing. And second, if it was a thing, it was a thing that needed to be continually managed. And the first thing that fell away for me was thinking that it was a thing. It stopped making sense as a thing. But somehow I still had that managing the process part of it going. So I was managing the process of improving myself without actually having improvement goals in mind, which was a little weird for a while. When the need to manage the learning process dropped away, things got really different. I can just, and I think I shared this with several of you guys, I can just try shit. That's hugely simplifying without having to identify the best things to try, the optimal things to try. And it's perfectly legitimate as learning beings with the capacity to design scientific experiments. There's no reason not to, or no rule against trying to optimize things and measure results and do comparisons. That's all great. But do it for fun. Do it for the sake of learning, not for the sake of passing the test, because there is no test, there's no test giver, there are no test results. So just kind of getting into the swing of letting life educate me and being a learner who's not in charge of the curriculum has been really interesting.
Just thought of something and it ran away. It ran away.
And we don't have to go there. It just was a
Yeah.
pulling through, so I threw it out.
Yeah. And I was there with you, and then I had a response, and then I started thinking about the response, and I lost my train of thought. Don't space out. I was shared with Molly and Terry earlier. I have a mentor. I volunteer at Mentor Me in my town, and I have a 10-year-old mentor, and I get to see her once a week, and she has lunch with me and one of her friends today. And I told them I had a little nervousness, a stage fright about this call, and one of the 10-year-olds said, "You'll be fine, just don't space out," which I just did. But I knew it would be fine if I did, so that's good. The thing about, I was thinking about the red zone, right? The Owelometer. And if I was making that graphic today on the red zone, it would say Owelometer. I'm sorry, these things I can't ever say oh well about. And
so the red zone is where you can't say oh well.
Cannot, no, yeah. The green zone is like, don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. Oh well is totally enough.
And the yellow zone would be, I'll sit with it, and I'm willing to consider Owellifying this or accepting Owellification. But the red zone would be, fuck no. And I still have some things that hang out more in there than in the yellow or green, and one of them is finances. Mm-hmm. I haven't earned my keep in going on 5 years now, and have been living on not a lot of savings, which is less than it was over 5 years. And I have adopted what often feels like a really comfortable, easy gossamer cloak of frugality, and sometimes feels like heavy chainmail of I can't travel, and I can't replace that tooth, and I can't even consider replacing my, how old is it now? 17-year-old car. And so that part, the deferred maintenance or the deferred kinds of things is, kind of like, there's not really, I Owell it, but I really think the Owelling is me trying to be in denial or being afraid to free up in that area. So that for me is something that I don't have an easy, simple relationship with. I don't know if anyone else can feel the kind of stuff where you feel blocked around that, but I know that one's, I saw a thumb. Yeah, hi Sandy, yeah. Do you want to say something?
I so completely relate to what you say, and that our time frames kind of parallel each other is kind of blowing me away at the moment, but that's okay. That's been happening a whole lot in this.
We have a lot of those moments, Sandy, you and I, yes.
But what's coming apparent to me is I have a lot of opinions about what turning 65 is supposed to be. And I had a whole lot of opinions about where I was going to retire from. But I didn't really think about being a retired person. I never said, I'll work until I retire and I'll retire from here. But, what retirement was going to be, I don't know. I don't feel like my grandmother. My grandmother was a retired person. I do not look like her. I don't know what it is to be a retired person. But I have found myself in this place with those circumstances. And I look at my 20-year-old car, Sue, and I think, I am so fucking glad I have taken care of this little car, because there is no way that I could replace it. If it went belly up tomorrow, I couldn't replace it. It's okay because I'm not driving anywhere these days, which is equally good. I don't need it at the moment, but it pisses me off that circumstance. I still have anger about this. Ooh, that's a shock. Ooh, I didn't know that. Granted, I didn't have a plan for what I was going to do in this part of my life. No clue. Didn't even shoot for it and say, someday I'll be a retired person. I'll live in Miami and, it'll be fabulous. Not that I would ever live in Miami. But I didn't think it was going to be this. I didn't think that the people who told me that I was a wonderful employee and that they don't know what they would do without me would one day say, you know what, we've changed your minds. This is so hard for us to do to you, to say, this really is hard for me to tell you that we, need to say goodbye. It's like, what? I didn't expect that. I too am dwindling. And I have so many near panic attacks about money or about livelihood and income and quality of life. I have opinions out the yin yang, which are so unhelpful. And I feel like there's nothing I can do about it. And I know that's bullshit. I know that I can do something about the way I think about this. I could probably even do something about the circumstances too, but I'm not really caring about the circumstances as much as my freaking sanity. I want my sanity on this. I'm sorry, that kind of opened up a whole lot of stuff there.
Yay, go you. I identify, I relate, and I have a sneaking suspicion. That there's freedom in here for me. I can see that there, when I said, yes, it's in my red zone, but you know what? It's not all the time. I've never been, I don't know about you guys, but I've never been a law of attraction person. I've never been comfortable with that, I will visualize it and it will come kind of thing. But I also think I've been habitually rigid about the possibility of, I think I've seen closed doors or lack of possibility where that might not have been true. And just even entertaining that possibility is softening my stuckness a little bit. Does that make any sense? What do you think, Molly?
Well, what I think is that what's been most helpful to me is to not care so much what I think, and also not care so much how I feel, which sounds weird. But, or I don't know if it sounds weird to you. It certainly sounds weird to me. Whenever I think, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer 4 years ago. And I had 3 really difficult, painful experiences in the 2+ years of surgery. I had a bilateral mastectomy, I had radiation, and then I had reconstructive surgery. So all of that took a fair amount of kerfuffle. I had 3 really painful experiences. One was about 3 hours, 4 hours long. And that was I'll do them in order. First was in the biopsy waiting room. And as I'm sitting there, I'm starting to think, This was I could feel the tumor myself even before the doctor felt it. There was nothing there on the mammogram a year ago. Therefore, this 5 millimeter or centimeter tumor, not centimeter, anyway, this big freaking tumor grew really fast. Therefore, it's probably stage 4 breast cancer. And that's okay, because I'm not afraid of death, but I wasted my life and I feel really bad about that. And I started to spiral down. I mean, I got really blue about what a self-absorbed, small-minded chicken shit I had been in my life. And as I sat there feeling that, what a self-absorbed, small-minded chicken shit I was to allow myself to feel that way, because anyone who is truly spiritually realized would be sitting in that waiting room broadcasting love and light. Because I had a theory about how a spiritually mature person does cancer, and it didn't look like sitting in the corner feeling sorry for oneself for having made so many bad decisions. So judging myself and second guessing myself, and then pressuring myself to have a better quality of thought than I was having. The next low moment was my first meeting with the breast surgeon and making the choice to have both breasts removed because there was only evidence of cancer in one, there was a suspicion in the other. And I was very clear that I wanted a bilateral mastectomy. I never had a doubt about what I wanted, but I had doubt about what I should want. And for about 5 hours that afternoon, after telling her what I wanted, I was second guessing myself. And then the third time was after the initial surgery of the mastectomy. I was in a lot of pain. Pain medication makes me very ill, vomiting ill. And I thought I thought I shouldn't be hurting so bad. So I was a little worried that I was hurting too much. But I was mostly judging the hell out of myself for minding being in pain. In all 3 instances, the real core of my horrible pain wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking uncomfortable thoughts in all circumstances. But what made it more than uncomfortable to almost unbearable was that I was judging what I was thinking. And for me, can I just go for the human ride? Can I have a shitty day? Can I be spiritually incorrect? Can I fret about my finances? Can I let myself be resentful? Not because I think it's a great idea, I don't. Not because I think it's ultimately wise or real, I don't. But because it's what's happening. So it's like I let myself cry when a sad song comes on the radio. Why can't I let myself cry when a sad financial song goes through my mind? And so that's more where I am these days with difficult thought, is freeing myself. I don't know how to free myself from the flow of upsetting thought. But I notice that there's a whole world of hurt that gets layered up on top of my thinking, made up of my judgments about myself and my thinking. And discovering that I don't have to do that. And it's scary. I think I was afraid if I let myself go for the sad ride or the anxious ride, I'll never come out the other side.
Yes.
And I have depression data in my background and anxiety data in my background. I could defend that. But come to find out, it was never being low that was so horrible. It was worrying about being low that kept me under the waterline. And that's just something that over time I've gotten a feel for. I hate it when I'm low, don't get me wrong. I don't worry about it nearly as much while I'm hating it. And that's made a lot of difference.
Lorianne, you want to say something? Yeah? Join in.
Hi there.
Oh, you got it. Okay.
So, well, first of all, Molly, thank you for that. I feel like I've gotten back into the whole ruminating about all the crap that's going on in this world right now, and I've been judging the shit out of myself on that. So to hear you say that right now, that was actually very helpful. Actually, my thought was actually for Sandy, because after listening to you talk, the only thing that came to me was, whatever you thought you might have done 2 years ago probably would have been completely different than what you want now. So all you did was free yourself up from a whole bunch of shit you weren't going to do anyway.
Good one, Lorianne.
Just throwing that out there. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share, and then Molly shared what she shared. So since I have the phone, the microphone,
The talking stick.
I have been struggling with this whole ruminating, or just feeling the pressures of the world, and that nothing I fucking do is gonna make it any better anyway. And I'm going to have to sit a bit on what Molly said, because it does feel it was more that it's the judging of, well, why can't I fix it? Or why doesn't anything I do matter? Or, here's all this stuff in the world that I don't think should be like that. Nobody gives it, the universe doesn't give a shit what I think. And it's been, I don't feel like I've been handling it very well. It's actually been a bit of a downer, And as you know, my life, when I really, I got to it was pouring rain here in Minnesota yesterday. I live on the Cannon River. It's flooded over because we have so much rain today, but I got to take my 13-year-old Springer, you might have saw her in the background, out for a walk today. It's gorgeous out today. I work from home in a home office. I have a good home business. In general, life is good. But I haven't been feeling so good lately. And it's mostly because of what I see, kind of playing out on the national, international scene. And I'm just not very thrilled about it. And I won't even say that it's possible, but I'm surprised how much I've let it affect my mood when I should know better. Or, that feeling of judgment. So it was really interesting hearing you say that, Molly.
Yeah, for me too. And I've had an interesting, I don't know if this is a converse of it at all, but an interesting take on it, because I in addition to these Zoominars, I have 5-6 local events happening in the next month and a half. And so I made flyers, and I'm walking around and asking people if I can put up flyers. And I have a grumpy go-to way of being, I have tend to be a kind of a curmudgeon, and now I'm interacting with people and asking them if I can post flyers, and having the opportunity not to revert to type, to actually express myself in a different way, and to come from the qualities I really would rather come from: generosity and love and friendliness, which I'm very uncomfortable in, and not as practiced, or not very uncomfortable, but it's something that I'm playing in a little bit, because I don't want to, I want to take my best shot at connecting with people. And now that has somehow become more clear to me than the stuff I feel like I need to do as palliative care for the stuff that for the now that I'm not having. And that thing you said about judging the thinking, Molly, is really a huge part of that, I think, because that only deepens it, makes it last longer, makes it worse. That pylon. Oh, you're muted, Mo.
It's made a massive difference to me. And if somebody had told me about that, I might have resisted it because it didn't seem to me that the judgments were my problem. My problem was the thinking I was judging. So it's like, I'd be kind of insane not to judge this thinking, because thinking is making me miserable. It's like, yeah, and judging your thinking is making you more miserable. So reduce the pain you can reach first.
Which I dare say creates more space.
It absolutely does. And, you know, we can talk about, and many teachers have talked about, the benefits of self-compassion and forgiveness. In that biopsy suite, what happened is, as I'm sitting there feeling horrible about myself, and then feeling horrible because I had started teaching the principals at that time, and because obviously I was completely sucky 3 principles person or spiritual person, because I couldn't seem to manage my thinking, and I couldn't seem to stop feeling desperate about my life and the waste of my life, in spite of the fact that I knew I was responding to thinking. I still felt horrible. And something, somewhere, this little thought flitted by that said, Molly, psst, psst, psst. Didn't something touch you once about everyone doing the best they could? Have you heard that? Do you remember that? And I thought, yeah, I remember that. Everybody does the best they can. Even you right now. It's like, I hope not, because I really want to do better, but maybe. This possibility of recognizing that I was doing my best, which actually didn't feel so much like letting myself off the hook, because before I could let myself off the hook, I had to have the humility to accept that my best sucked, according to my standards. But as soon as I had the humility to recognize that, yeah, this is my best shot, and right now I'm creating misery. Oh, well. That's how I found the oh, well about that. I couldn't find oh, well in I've wasted my life, but I could find oh, well in
You're making it worse.
Yeah, and I'm doing my best here, and it looks pretty sucky, and it's not elegant, and it's not spiritualized, and oh, well.
I don't know if Michael Neal originated the apparently thing that I hear around me all the time these days, but I've been hearing it in the Creating the Impossible conversations. Apparently, I'm doing Simplici-Teas now. Apparently, I'm following this little creative push I'm feeling inside me, and I'm doing this thing. And I'll tell you guys, I am surprised I did it, because I have failed to launch a whole bunch of kind of programs over the last few years. I have come up with this kind of reclaim your resilience, and I don't even want to remember them all now. But I have failed to make a go of them. Terry, yours is going to be great. Don't be scared. Terry's got one launching next month, but this, you know what's so not only apparently am I doing this anyway, I may launch something when this is done, but I don't even know what it will be. If it's going to be a thing, I don't know what it is yet. Mm-hmm. And so I'm doing this anyway. I know it's going to help me with my book. I know it's going to help me get clearer on this thing I'm creating. And maybe there'll be some kind of ongoing program. I'm hoping I know that in May sometime. I've asked for it to come to me, but I don't even know if I'll know. And apparently I'm doing this anyway, even though I don't have that kind of plan that all the coaches I have, and all the coaches that I have had help me, and all the trainings I've invested in me, tell me to do it a way that has not worked for me. And I don't even know what it is, the it that I'm doing in terms of something later, but I just know that this is the it I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, yes, Terry, please. I was just going to ask you to chime in.
I want to say how absolutely impactful what everyone's talking about has been, but particularly what you shared, Molly, about I talked to Sue a little bit about this. I've got this program launching. I've never done a paid program. I've never done a program. And I got back from this trip to California and I've had just a slew of thinking about what in the hell am I doing? I wish the world would just burn down and I would be fine if the planet would just stop rotating and I could jump off or something. And before I left on the trip, I just had a sense of, well, and I probably had a conversation with Sue at that time. Who I am is not what's going through my head, right? It's okay that all this stuff's going through my head because it has nothing to do with me. I still know that, but in the midst of this turmoil around what's coming and my uncertainty and all the insecure thoughts and stuff that are going on, I'm not experiencing it. I know it, but I'm not experiencing it. I'm full force experiencing my thoughts in the moment. I feel sick. I feel, I really feel like I've made a mistake to put this out there. Just all the crap in the world's coming up. And it's so helpful to hear you say that, Molly, because I know in the back of my mind that no matter what happens, I'm okay. Like even if this is a complete flop, even if I pull out and decide not to do it, I'm okay, right? It's just what it is. But if I move forward with it, it's possible that something really cool can happen. And really the whole thing is not up to me. I'm really clear about that because if it is, then, I would try to burn the school down. I was telling someone this, when I went back to college, my first day back, I was praying the school would burn down on the way there. That's how caught I was in not wanting to move forward with something new.
That's great.
So, yeah, I have all this experience happening that doesn't feel very comfortable. I can't see how it's going to be different. And not adding anything to that, just letting it be there, is hugely impactful.
Oh, Terry, thank you so much. That's exactly how I'm seeing it too. And Molly, that thing about judging thoughts, because I have had a few really juicy spates of, what is that, imposter syndrome? Like, what am I? Who am I? What? And what if I do get sick, or what if I die? What if I don't look both ways and I get run over in 5 seconds? What, but the who am I kidding and the what am I thinking stuff. And it's truly, I would say a good part of the time I can just see it and not make it worse by judging myself for feeling that way, for having those thoughts about my worth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really, really happy to be spending less time in misery generated by judging my thinking. I spend enough time unhappy just because of what I'm thinking. And I still spend a fair amount of time with that. Not nearly as much as I used to, but I do. And it will come up to me. I mean, the judger is still alive and well. It will pop up. Don't you think you should be doing something about this, Molly? This is a pattern. Maybe you should take a look at that pattern. Don't you think? Maybe. Or getting into, it's fine for you to be okay with this, Molly, but other people are relying on you too, sweetheart. Don't you think you should pay a little bit of attention to this pattern because maybe blah, blah, blah. So I still have those conversations. I just I don't invest in them. It's like they're the door-to-door solicitors. They knock and say, would you like to invest in our lifetime program of improving your thoughts? And rarely do they get as far as pulling out the catalog anymore. I don't invite them into the house.
Okay, wait a minute. I would like to burn my certificate of investment in the belief that I am not partnerable and I will be single for the rest of my days. I would like to, yeah, because that one is like beyond the red zone. It's,
Yeah.
it's holding up the end of the scale for me. So yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Any degree, any level at which we can decline to buy into managing our thinking is an improvement. It's not the thinking that's the problem. You know, life, okay, I'm going to say something that's not true, but it looks true-ish to me. Like, God threw a carnival and called it life. And God wants all of the experiences. God wants to go on all the rides, and God wants to feel all the rides through all the possible feelings. And sometimes I get the job of being on the one on the ride who hates the ride. God doesn't care. God still wants to find out what it's like to hate the ride. So that's my job until it stops being my job. And so once I started to get a feel for everything that's happening, including how I feel, is just happening. And nothing that is happening is going to be improved by my managing what's happening. As I started to get a feel for that, then I started to butt out of managing my thinking. It's so funny because the more we talk about this, the more it looks like, do not invite Marie Kondo into your mind. You've been working on organizing your mind your whole life. I know I have. So maybe the parallel is funny because I just this week published a blog post at Charlie Gilkey's blog, Productive Flourishing, on Marie Kondoing your mental clutter. I wrote it while I was sick. I have no idea what it says. And I reserve the right to deny I even wrote it. What I'm seeing right now is don't go there. It won't help.
That's
Do
right.
not pick up your thoughts. Do not evaluate your thoughts. Do not fold them.
And
Don't
yeah, yes, do not air them out. Yes, no, yeah.
Do not iron them. Exactly.
Or mend them when they fray.
Yeah.
Let them fray.
Oh my God, I have done so much mending in my life.
Yeah, and the ruminating and the revisiting and all of it. I think if I think it's really nice to surrender enough to have some space, some air, some fresh air come in.
And surrender was the word that really came up for me, Terry, while you were talking. Is like there's this paradoxical, at least it was a paradox for me. I thought that I needed to surrender to universal mind or to God or to wisdom so that life and God and wisdom could work through me more seamlessly and I would have a better experience. And it turns out that life and wisdom in the universe are doing just fine. They don't need to work through me any better than they are. They think they're having a party. What I need to surrender to is that the unit named Molly and the ego named Molly is taking form in this way in God's party. That's what I have to surrender to because I've been trying to wrangle that. I want to show up at the party differently. I want to take the ride and not scream when we start racing downhill. I want the option not to get on this ride. I don't do roller coasters. I'm not getting any of those options in this lifetime. So I need to surrender not to the divine. I need to surrender to the human and get over the fantasy that as long as I'm in a human body, I'm going to have a non-human experience. I'm not excited about that, by the way. I kind of preferred my divine fantasy.
And for me, sometimes these days, the divine is my humanity. The divine is the divine, and that, and that's like kind of the gossamer cloak that I want to be wrapped in as much as possible.
That's true, but for me at least, when I have kind of my eye on that prize, I tend to get messed up. I don't know if anybody else is just.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. And that's I'm just happy there are moments when it comes through.
There are. And I do think it's valuable to know that surrendering to humanity does not mean surrendering to always being on the scariest ride, having the most miserable experience.
And behaving as badly as possible.
Exactly. Surrendering to be human just means that when you are on a scary ride, in the worst part, having a bad experience and showing up poorly, it's temporary and you don't have to fix it. You're just human. That's all that means. And when you accept that, then you're more of, I don't actually know how it works, whether we're more available for the better experience that's right down the pike from us, or if we don't lock on to how horrible this is. Because whenever I want to change something, I have to lock onto it in order to change it. And locking onto it is what keeps me in relationship to something that's making me miserable.
And that, we can use that energy for good too. I feel like Glinda the Good from The Wizard of Oz, the second time she came to me this call. But we can use that energy for good too. We can glom onto things and have much lighter and happier results, I think. We have a few minutes left. Does anyone else want to chime in?
I had, I've never liked, or quote unquote tolerated the word surrender in my life, because it just felt like taking out the trash or something. And that's one of the things you guys were talking about. We don't need to iron it. We don't need to fold it. We don't need to. And I was thinking, and you don't need to get rid of it.
Right.
You don't have to take it to the junk shop or whatever like that. But I heard a definition of surrender that I actually felt so amazing to me, that surrender is present awareness.
Say that again, Terry.
Surrender is present awareness.
Mm.
Or presence, right? Right? It's like...
It's present awareness.
Yes.
I think so.
It's not judging. It's not doing anything about anything. It's being present with what is, with your awareness.
Full stop.
Yeah, full stop.
Some crazy impulse, I don't know if I told you this, Terry, some crazy impulse brought me to signing up for a beginner's yoga class, I guess about a month ago, in the middle of this incredible pain flare-up in my body. I did it because I had the idea that it might create an opening for some healing beyond what I've been able to manage for myself with all my hard work. And and that's when I had that insight that my well-being is independent of sensation and process in my body. That day I could barely get onto the mat, and getting up was no easy feat either. I think I went to the 4th class yesterday and was able to sit in hero pose for whatever. It wasn't about the achievement, but so I'm sorry I even said that. But what I really mean to say is that it's that knowing that in presence, in surrender, anything can be happening. And my response ability, if I don't get in the way of it, should probably get me through it, whatever it may be. Hey, Molly, before we end, do you want to tell people that are new to you, how they can find you and connect with you, and if you have something they should know about?
It's a spam call, so we'll just hear another ring in the background. It'll go away. I'm on, you can find me pretty readily on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter if you search for Molly Gordon or Shaboom, SHABOOM. And my website is Shaboom Inc., SHABOOMINC.com. Until last summer, for about 3 years, I made a weekly video on these themes, usually like 2 to 6 minutes long, most of them shorter, on the shorter end. And they're in my blog. So if you like that kind of thing, they're just heaps of short videos. And I really appreciated being here, Sue. It's been fun.
Thanks. And do you still have the wholeness hangouts? You had a bunch of conversations.
I was having monthly conversations with 3 principals, teachers, and coaches and practitioners on wholeness, on wisdom, on insight. And I apparently am not doing them right now.
But I think you have the library somewhere, right? On your YouTube.
There is a library on the website. In fact, there's a tab, I think, that says Wholeness Hangouts.
There's some great conversations there if you're ever in the mood for some inspiration.
For those, there's some really excellent ones. Michael Neal was on 2 or 3 times. George Pransky was on a couple times. Linda was on a few times. So some superstars.
Yeah, and I have, thank you, Molly, and I will continue to stay connected with you. And I, like I said, don't know where this is leading, except that I know that there will be a bunch more of these calls coming up. I think there's one a week until the beginning of June. I think Terry's got the last one I got scheduled now will be with Terry in the first week of June. And I'm waiting to hear from a couple of other people, but we have Linda Pettit and Karen DeMarco and Christian McNeil and Nina Lockwood and my friend Sharon Rosen all joining me. And so come back if you like, and come to Northern California and come visit and come to one of the live ones. You're all over the world anyway, but thank you so much. This has been amazing. I'm really grateful.
It's been good to see some old friends and some new friends. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to spend time with you, Molly. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye. It was so nice meeting everybody. See you, Terry.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.